You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner and founder here at Good Life Family Chiropractic on the south side of Lincoln. And I'm coming to you today with another message of hope, health, and wholeness. And the topic of today's show is one that I think is very important for everyone to understand. I mean, if you think that your lung health in relationship to smoking is important, then listen up, because what we're talking about today has nothing to do with smoking, because only a small portion of the population even smokes anymore. But what we're talking about today is something that affects absolutely everyone, and that's posture and ergonomics. It was estimated in a study that was done and then published in Time Magazine just a few years back, that sitting for a single hour without getting up and moving can be as detrimental to your health as simply just smoking a single cigarette. It's really confusing when you think about it from that perspective, because we sit all the time and it doesn't make us feel bad necessarily. But what they said is that the average American sits for up to 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on where they are, but the average being right around that 6 hour mark. And that is having long-term health detrimental effects, that it's actually creating sickness and disease, that colon cancers were increased by as much as 50%, that lung and breathing disorders were increased by over 20%, and that it was affecting people's health. And they couldn't fully explain it because it was aside from whether or not someone got exercise and actually moved throughout the day. And it seemed to be tied to the amount of time that someone was consistently, without moving and changing position, stuck in the same position. Now, this study, it was done not by chiropractors, not by neurologists. It was done by orthopedists. And orthopedists are concerned with posture and are concerned with where you put yourself in space, but they don't fully understand the role of the central nervous system and the role of posture. And so what I do, I'm a structural correction specialist. I am one of about 1% of chiropractors in the world that specialize in posture and structural correction. Most chiropractors are aware of posture and can help improve posture, but very, very few know how to actually fix multiple misalignments of the spine, to realign everything, to get rid of a scoliosis or correct a text neck the way that we do here in this office. There's actually no one else in the state that's certified through Max Living in the 5 essentials of health the way that we are here. And so literally, we're the only office within 3.5 hours of Lincoln down here where I'm at. And so I have people coming from all over the state to us. But one of the first things that I do when I'm teaching patients about health and about spinal misalignment is I teach them normal, and then I teach them the things that take you out of that normal position. So we start off, you should be looking at your spine from the front. It should be straight up and down. There should be no curves one way or the other. That gives you the solid base, that solid foundation. Your hips are level, your shoulders are level, your head's level on top of that. And then when you turn to the side, your ears, your shoulders, your hips, and your ankles should all be in a straight line. And then when you look at the spine underneath that, it should have 345-degree curves with the center of the base of the skull lined up with the middle of the shoulders, where the thoracic spine starts. And then that should be lined up with the middle of your hips and the middle of the transition between the lumbar and the thoracic spine. And so in that position, the number one thing that happens is your spinal cord and the nerve roots and the brainstem are all perfectly protected from any physical traumas. Like you can get in a car accident and you won't die because you have a spinal column. It's really cool the way that God designed this. Now, it's also a neurological component unto itself. The muscles that go between each of those segments, they're called multifidi. Between each vertebra, there are little muscles that are like rubber bands, and they have nerve receptors that tell the brain whether or not that segment is moving properly in its protection of your spinal cord and of the nerve roots. If one of those segments gets stuck, and it's stuck out of alignment, or even just stuck in alignment, it will send an afferent or an aberrant or a bad signal to the brain. And the brain will view that signal as stress and start creating a stress response. and it'll increase your cortisol levels. It'll send inflammation to that joint, start to initiate a healing process. And some of those misalignments will actually correct themselves if they're taken care of quickly enough. Now, sometimes the misalignment is so great and left there for so long that your body, the innate intelligence, it struggles with this limitation of matter. Our bodies are designed to heal. That's one of the main tenets of health, that we all heal if given the right time and right conditions. But let's say you sit for too long. Let's say you work at a computer, you work at a desk job, you're sitting in front of this desktop computer with this monitor, and you have this nice chair. It's very comfortable. And you do just like my wife does, who's an architect. You sit in front of that screen, you're intently staring at it all day, answering email, taking phone, referencing what's going on there, designing buildings, clicking, drawing, moving through that building virtually, and you get caught up in your project. Well, every hour that you sit takes about 11 minutes off of your life expectancy. 14 minutes is smoking. So you're doing worse for your health just by sitting there than you would if you were smoking a cigarette. But you keep going. You don't just stop and get up every hour. You keep going with that. You need something from across the office. You send an instant message, or you pick up the phone and you page your office mate, or you send a text. Any of these things, they're designed to keep you in your chair. And what happens structurally, what happens ergonomically when you're sitting in front of a computer is this. Number one, just by sitting down, you lose at least 10 degrees off of the curve in your low back, such that when I'm taking a stress film, I will take your X-ray of your low back seated, and I expect a healthy spine to go from 45 degrees down to 35 degrees when I look at it from the side. If I don't see that change, I know that there's restriction in there. If I see more than that change, if you go down and you stay at 20 or 10, or, I had a patient yesterday who I took their X-ray, their spine was going the wrong direction. It was actually curving back the opposite direction, which creates a pathological tension on the spinal cord. In fact, even just losing half of the curve in your low back creates enough of a tension on the spinal cord to start to kill the nerve cells, those neurons that reside in the anterior horn cells. That's really important, because if you want to create a condition that replicates and creates something like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's or dementia, do that. Lose the curve in your back, lose the curve in your neck, because it will create that tension that kills your nervous system, kills the spinal cord, kills the nerve roots. And so that's number one. Second thing that you do when you sit down in front of a computer is that screen is very magnetic. You start looking at a screen, you start leaning towards it, you come closer, you come closer, you come closer, and eventually you're right there. Your head stuck out over your shoulders, and every inch that your head goes forward from your shoulders adds 10 pounds of pressure across the base of the neck and across those nerve roots in the spinal cord as they exit out across the shoulders. Now, that amount of forward head posture has not just been correlated with Parkinson's disease, it's also been correlated with an increased risk in cardiovascular disease and decreased lung function. If you have 2 inches of head forward posture, your risk of a cardiovascular event, so think heart attack or stroke, goes up by 50% compared to your peer group. And that's just 2 inches of head forward posture. Most of us, when we're working on a computer, are way more than that. Your head's this bowling ball. If you walk around the bowling alley with that bowling ball stuck way out in front of you, it's going to create pressure and damage to your shoulder and to the arm. Every inch that goes forward adds 10 pounds of pressure. Same thing with your head. Every inch it goes forward adds 10 pounds of pressure. And most of us are walking around with an inch or 2 or more. And some of us not even walking. Some of us are just sitting and leaving that there, and it's not getting corrected because we're not actively taking care of our spines. So those are the 2 big things that we do. Now, there's other things within that, the ergonomic setup. You should, if you're going to sit in front of a computer or stand, either way, one of the big things that we need to do is we need to bring our monitors up. We should be raising that to eye level so that is directly in front of the center of our eye, center of our screen, center of our eye when we're standing in erect posture. We will change our posture to mimic where that screen is. Same thing if you're driving a truck. Your rear view mirror should be pointed up so that you have to elongate your spine to see out and see the full road behind you. If you're ever taking a long road trip, that's number one. Number 2 tip with that is to have a workstation that allows you to switch from seated to standing. to have a desk, a standing desk that can also be a seated desk. It should be one that moves up and down, especially if you know that you need to work at your workstation for hours a day. And that should be switched multiple times throughout the day so that you can utilize that, and make sure that whether you're standing or whether you're seated, that you set it up so that the middle of your computer screen is right in the middle of your eyes. The third thing is to set a timer for at least once every 45 minutes to get up and just move around. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to break a sweat. You don't even have to be gone all that long, but just getting up from your chair, from your workstation, and going to the bathroom, or getting a drink of water, or going to the bathroom so that you can, or going to get a drink of water so that you can go to the bathroom again in 45 minutes, is going to give you enough motion in your spine to combat some of the effects of being sedentary. This being sedentary may be the greatest health risk that Americans are dealing with today, because not only is it contributing to cardiovascular disease and breathing disorders, it also contributes to obesity and diabetes. And we definitely know that these are some of the top 3 or 4 killers in the United States, and increase your risk of every other infection. If you're wanting to be healthy, then make sure that you're dealing with your posture and ergonomics on a daily basis. And if you don't have someone to help coach you, we're here. We are the posture experts. We deal with this on a daily basis with our patients. So you can always pick up the phone and call my office, 531-289-7100. Also, you can send a text to that number, 531-289-7100, or go to our website, goodlifefamilychiropractic.com, and sign up for a virtual consultation. I'll do 15 minutes at absolutely no charge if you go to our website and set that up. But if you call our office and you want a consultation in person, that consultation will also be free. But we're also going to be giving a 50% discount off of exam, off of any necessary x-rays, to help you figure out what are the obstacles to you achieving health, whether that's because you're suffering with neck pain, you're suffering with back pain, you're suffering with sciatica, or you've got headaches. These are things that we see in our office on a daily basis, and we get to say goodbye to on a daily basis because we address the cause of those things. We do it all without drugs or surgery. We're doing things naturally. We're looking for the cause of the problem so that we can remove interference from that natural healing state so that you can get back to being healthy and doing those things that God designed you to do. We do that in our office through the 5 essentials. Number 1, that mindset, knowing what health is, where it comes from, and then supporting that with proper thought patterns, getting that mental, emotional, physical, spiritual component, that function at 100%. Number 2, recognizing that God heals you through your nervous system, that he created the nervous system to keep your heart beating and your lungs breathing and a cut on your leg healing. Number 3, getting the right nutrients in there so the nervous system has a body to rebuild, and knowing that it's doing that constantly, that you get a new stomach lining every 3 days, a new heart every 5 to 10 years, and new bones and nerves every 15 to 20 years. Number 4, supporting that with oxygen. Number 5, supporting that by taking toxins out. I'm Dr. Jake Tucker. Join me again tomorrow for another episode of Ask Dr. Jake.